Right there. Hey now. What's happening, guys? It's Wednesday night. All
What's up,
right.
Happy,
you guys? It's good
It
to see you.
happy
9:05,
jump
just a
day.
couple of minutes past 9 o'clock. This is Halenville Live. Charles Green, Keith Campbell alongside on a Wednesday. What's happening, dudes?
It's cold and rainy
Same
in
stuff.
North Carolina.
It's a little chilly in San Diego, but nothing close to what you guys are dealing with.
Getting ready for Christmas here in a couple of weeks. You guys ready for Christmas?
Well, I just want to say here publicly, and I wish Neil was here with us. There's 321 more days till Halloween. Okay, so
Knew it.
I just, and that
Oh
was for
yeah.
you, Neil, right there, brother.
Right on.
Countdown.
Well,
But
Yeah, no. In fact, I want to also say the gifts that I'm getting for you guys are all probably going to be somewhere between the 25th and the 1st as far as for their delivery, because evidently waiting 2.5 weeks before you place an order for Christmas is not enough time to get it there on time in some situations. So
oh yeah,
I'm
I
just
get
letting
it.
uh-oh.
everybody know that goes for everybody. But if you
Disclaimer.
get it before then, it's a freaking Christmas miracle. So you got it. You got it.
Right
It's
on,
good to
dude.
see all of you guys, though. It's good to
Yeah,
see
it
you
is good to
guys,
see you,
man.
Charles.
Great to see you too, man. And I
Yeah,
got Franklin Bumble out, so he's all ready to rock out.
right
Nice.
on. We um we are we're talking all things Van Halen tonight. We're all jacked about getting the new Guitar World, right?
Yeah, my goodness.
So,
My
um
goodness.
Oh yeah,
with Wolfgang right on the cover, boom.
bada bing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
coolness.
twinning.
Yeah, great article in it. Um yeah,
It's just another outstanding article from Chris Gill and Guitar World magazine. Um, you can go back. We'll go into it in due time. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the legacy of EVH, their mission, their whole focus hasn't changed in my eyes in the last shit since 2004.
Right.
Um,
yeah, they're going strong and they
yeah, and
yeah.
they're not reinventing the wheel. They're just making the wheel better and better and better and better. They're not reinventing things. I don't mean to say they're not. I'm not saying what I mean correctly. I apologize,
Um,
but
they
Yeah, no,
they
you
they
know
are
what I
doing
mean.
some.
Um, they
they
are
have
doing
put
Eddie's
their
legacy honor. I guess is kind of what I mean to say.
right since
Yeah,
Ed's passing, they put their stamp and claim
yeah,
as
yeah.
a force moving to the future. So,
But they're
Exactly.
still sticking with the same formula to make sure
mhm,
that
Yeah,
it's going to be
exactly.
kick-ass equipment. It's going to be road tested beautifully, and it's going to be an epic piece of equipment, regardless.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
um,
Um, let
yeah,
me.
yeah. Very cool.
We have Chris Gill with us to talk about this article. It's always great to see Chris. Before we bring him in, I want to recognize the chat. But know, kids, that we're going to do Van Halen trivia later on for some new prizes. Plus, we have our Halenville Live Lost Year End contest happening. This is the second week we're going to take a winner from 4 winners in December. This is week number 2, and that'll be coming up a little later on. You're gonna get one of these passes,
Very cool.
and for tonight,
Mm-hmm.
for tonight, let me do this real quick. We're playing for, okay,
Get ready for
we're
this, boys and
playing
girls.
for $1 million bill, 1 million Van Halen dollars.
That's a must have right there.
Oh, yes.
All right. So not only that, and the pass that gets you in the party on New Year's, but
But wait, there's more.
check this out. So a poker chip with the Van Halen logo on one side, okay, and that on the other.
I like that, bro.
So we're playing for the chip and the bill tonight. Plus you get the pass, the laminate. Yeah, for one question.
Yeah.
Nearly impossible Van Halen trivia.
Nearly impossible,
Nearly.
but not unknowable. If you know your stuff, you'll know this, but you're
Yeah.
going to have to really know your stuff for this.
You do. Right on. All right.
Very cool.
So
Very-
let's, I never open up the chat ahead of time. Let's open up chat, guys, see who's hanging.
Yeah.
Boom, right on. Dan in New Jersey, right
Wow.
there.
Dan,
And-
what's
What's
going on,
brother?
And there's Sandra in the chat.
Hi,
Good
Sandra.
to see
Hi, Sandra.
Sandra. All right, I'm going to scroll up. R2, R3, lock and nut,
R2,
bro.
Our
My
turn.
Van Halen brother. Christopher Live Sour.
Mr. Silva.
Silva.
Holly Lewis is here, who won
Hey, sweetheart.
last week's Nearly Impossible
Yes.
Van Halen
So
trivia.
you are no longer eligible.
Holly's already got a pass to get in that
That's
party.
right.
Right
That's
on.
right. She's
Christopher
already in the
Live
party.
Sour. Have I said Christopher Live Sour
You can
yet,
say
Charles?
Christopher twice, Mr. Silva's
Right
awesome.
on.
Mhm. One for
All
each
right,
set of
Ed's
devil
here.
wings.
What's going on? It's good to
Nice
see you,
to
Ed.
see Ed. Good to see
Right.
you.
What's going on,
dude.
Ed?
Jay Turner in the house. What's up,
Come on,
Jay?
Jay.
How you
All
doing,
right, so Adam Roach is in the house. Happy birthday to Adam. Today is Adam's birthday,
Right on,
man.
Adam.
man? Happy birthday, Adam.
Happy
Very
birthday,
cool,
dude.
Cheers.
Right
Very
on,
cool,
dude.
brother. Very cool.
Yeah. You rock. Absolutely.
Yeah. Hope you
And
got
let me
spoiled today.
say this before I start to scroll up. Today is Johnny B Guitar's birthday. It's John's birthday today.
Right on, Johnny B.
Also. Yeah.
Very
Happy
cool.
birthday, dude.
bro.
Right on.
Look at that.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Let's scroll on up.
Who
All right.
else?
Thomas Santiago. What's up, Thomas? Good to see you,
Thomas.
dude.
What's going on, man?
All right.
Good to see you, Thomas. Right on, brother.
All right. Still trying to scroll. If you're just hopping in here, Andy Carson is. Good to see you, Andy.
Andy.
You, Andy. Right on, bro.
Stay
Say
safe.
hello in the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to scroll back down and catch them on that end, guys. Good to see you. It's
Mhm.
Wednesday. Merry Christmas. Hope things are going good. Hope the weather's good where you are, because it's not where we are, is it, Charles? No.
Nope. It's cold and wet and miserable, and it sucks.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right.
I had that Monday and Sunday. It was just blustery. It was just plain old nasty. You know, kind of day you just want to stay under the covers.
I wouldn't complain, but it's just going to get worse. So,
Oh, yeah.
you know.
Mhm.
I know. Dudes, let's bring in our special guest, Mr. Chris
Absolutely.
Gill. Always good to
Right
see
on,
him.
Chris.
Yeah.
Right on, bro.
Hey, Chris.
Hello.
Welcome back to Halenville, bro. Very cool.
How's it going, Chris? Good to see you, sir. Ah,
There he
there it
is.
is.
That's
That's
who I was
most
looking for.
excellent. Most
yeah,
excellent.
Frankie Gill.
Right
Yeah, my
on.
man.
Doing good. Doing good. Enjoying some downtime for once, and like for first time in the last 3 years or something, I think. So
Right
Yeah.
on, man.
I'm already making work for myself though. So I'm gonna dig out my first interview with Ed from '94 and probably put some bits and pieces online here soon.
Very nice.
Oh, that'll be
So
awesome.
probably
Yeah.
by the new year.
That'll be awesome, dude.
Yeah.
All pre-balanced stuff, huh? During the recording?
It was all the balance. Yeah, it was right before balance came out. So it was all about the balance thing. We're going to, one segment I want is just when he talked about Wolfgang, when Wolf was only 3 years old. So just, Ed foretelling the future, So,
Mhm.
you know, I think it'd be really cool for Wolf to hear his dad talking about him and everything. So that's going to be one of the first things I'm digging out. And so a few little things here and there too.
Yeah, nice.
Very nice.
We must say, Chris, we certainly enjoyed the interview in this latest Guitar World with Wolf and Matt, and it was what they both had to say together at the same time um, was really nice. I'm sure it was nice for you also.
It was all good, positive vibes, you know, just high energy, you know, as I've said before, you know, they're motivated. They are driven, you know, they're still grieving Ed, you know, but they've kind of gotten over the, you know, the real deep mourning and everything like that. And they're picking up on the energy from that and moving forward now. So that's, I mean, it's going to be a banner year here. 2023 is going to be a banner year for,
Yeah.
you know, the Wolfgang VanHalen and EVH camp and everything. So, a lot of activity going on, as we've talked about, you know, new album, you know, new gear coming out, a lot of projects. They're rolling, you know, they're just rolling right now.
What are
Yeah.
your favorite aspects that are popping out to you right now that are striking you that are a little different than, say, in the last couple of years?
Well,
New
I think,
innovation.
you know, particularly with Wolfgang, I think, you know, the first album was really a reflection of him finding his feet. And that was kind of still pretty early on. You know, a lot of that stuff was around 2015,
Mhm.
you know, that he recorded about
Mhm.
a good, you know, chunk of the album and everything. And then, of course, he had some time. But then, of course, you know, Ed got sick and he had to shift gears, not release the album, put it on the back burner and everything. And he added a couple little things here and there. But I think this is going to be his big statement album. You know, this is going to be, you know, I think because the first album was really good, but there's also a bit of him kind of paying tribute to some of his influences and everything. And I think we're going to hear more of Wolfgang this time around.
You know what? Just a side note, what is so nice,
Mhm.
he's not only paying tribute to some of his influences, he's already paid tribute to his father
Yeah.
and done it in the most hugest, awesome fashion it could possibly be done. How proud are we of this kid?
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to call him a kid. You know, I was looking as I was reading this article that you just came out with, and by the way, it's a wonderful article. We're going to go into it. I couldn't help but reflect back at a couple of articles that came to mind as I was reading this article, and how the way that you perpetuate the EVH WVH banner in your articles hasn't changed. It's just evolved.
Yeah.
Because it's always been positive. It's always been fresh. It's always fresh, Chris. And I don't notice a huge, you know what I noticed? The only difference I think I really see in your writing in the last, let's say the last 20 years, we'll go 15 years. I'll give you 15 years. It's probably difference, the variation in it is probably all from the editing. Because I think if you could, you don't edit your own material, do you?
No, but you know, the funny thing is like my material probably now is edited less than it was actually back then. So that's the interesting.
What do you attribute that to? Your writing being more,
partially
I don't want to say better. That's
part of it is because I'm an editor too. So I'm not just a writer. I've been an editor.
There you go.
Well.
Okay.
So
okay.
I'm already self-editing. You know,
that makes sense. Sure.
And part of it is you know, as I was the editor in chief of Guitar Aficionado and Remix magazine before that, and I've had a few other things, little one-off things that I've done, projects and everything. You know, I got sick of having to fix crappy copy, you know, and I didn't want to do that to the people I'm turning stuff into. So I want to make it as easy for them as possible. I want to fact check as much as possible in advance. So that's a big part of it. And I don't want to mention any names, but there was one guy we had before. He didn't really write anything, and editing was his gig. And unfortunately, I think he meddled with stuff just a little bit with a heavy hand.
Okay.
So I again, I don't want to bring up any names, but there was one instance where I'd been a judge for Guitar Center's King of the Blues contest. I went out to Chicago and was a judge for this.
What year was this, Chris? Do you remember?
Oh, that was probably about 06 or 07, maybe.
Okay.
And And I was there. I was a judge. I was at the event and the whole thing. And this guy completely changed stuff around. It was weird because it's like I had made some comment. I was kind of being a little bit snarky in some things. And I made a comment about one guy and because he wore a Hawaiian shirt. And I said, just like Steve Martin said, how you can't be unhappy. You can't be sad when you're playing the banjo. You also can't play the blues in a Hawaiian shirt.
There you go. That makes perfect sense. Sure.
The guy had made he saw these pictures that were taken from the rehearsal before the show. And this particular guy was wearing a shirt and it had guitars all over it. It wasn't really a Hawaiian shirt. It was just a shirt with a bunch of guitars on it. Gotcha. And so he changed it to wearing a shirt festooned with guitars. And I'm like,
wow.
No.
Wow.
He was wearing a Hawaiian shirt at the gig. I was fucking there. It's like, dude. Wow. And this guy would do this stuff all the time. It's like he would add errors and stuff, and he would just meddle with stuff. There's a guy, I don't want to go on too long about it, but there was another thing I wrote, this article about this guy, Stefan Sobel, who I own a couple of his guitars. He's this guy in Northumberland up above Newcastle, England. Okay. Incredible guitar builder, acoustic guitar builder.
Okay.
An artisan. Amazing. Mm-hmm. I wrote an article for him and he changed the guy's name from Stefan to Steven. And it's like, how the hell did that happen?
Why?
And why? Why did you change it from Stefan? What made you think that I made a mistake calling the guy Stefan, especially since I know the guy? I've bought his guitars, and it appears in print as Steven. And I had to apologize to the poor guy, and he's like, gosh, it's like, this is like, I don't get that much press.
He's probably like, gee, Chris, I thought you knew me, man. I thought we were friends.
I told him beforehand, I said,
oh, that's not
I called him up as preemptive, I said, look, unfortunately, the article came out. Unfortunately, the guy changed the spelling of your name. I don't know why, but he changed it. So anyways, long story short, though, I, have basically, I edit myself nowadays. So that's probably what you've noticed a little bit there. And I have improved. I mean, hey, I've been doing this long enough. So gosh, I mean, I better be better at what I'm doing,
That's awesome. That's awesome.
30 plus years. Yeah, absolutely.
So, Matt and Wolf, they spoke openly kind of about what some of the projects and plans are for the future, though, too, Chris, with you.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Very cool. I mean, they've got, a lot more coming. That's just, they're talking about stuff that's immediately, and they hinted to some other stuff. So there's some stuff we had to, people asked about me putting a video online, but there's a lot of asides that we had about stuff that was not for print, but there's exciting stuff coming. That's all I can basically say, especially for you, the deep pocketed people who want the replicas out there, man, watch out. There's going to be some really good stuff, but they're taking their time with it and they're doing it right. So they're making sure every detail is perfect,
Chris, that's kind of a reoccurring theme in the WVH world now. It's funny. I'm going to add WVH into everything I say about EVH now. The way that Wolf has morphed into who he is, and between him and Matt, the way that Matt has continued.
Yeah.
If Matt wasn't there, EVH wouldn't be the same. Because when the transition went over, it's very possible that the brand could have taken a horrible turn. But because Matt's there and because he's not doing anything differently, he's doing exactly what he's done all along.
He's doing
and just a little shout out. Yeah, totally.
Matt doesn't get it. I don't think Matt gets Matt's.
Matt was the man
Absolutely.
behind he was the prime mover over there. I mean, Ed was the mastermind, the big ideas guy, but Matt was really in there with the nuts and bolts stuff.
Sure.
I'll tell a story about, when was it? About 2017, I think it was, maybe 2018. Mm-hmm. When I did that story with Ed in 2013 there at 5150 about his guitar collection, Matt took me aside and we were like digging around in his garage, digging up guitars and stuff. And then he pulled me aside and he showed me his personal section. and it was all these incredible British amps, like the most amazing amplifiers you've never heard of unless you live in England and were around in the 50s and 60s and 70s. He has this just the most amazing, probably even more than anybody in England has. He has this incredible encyclopedic collection of British amplifiers and just amazing stuff. And we talked about it and agreed to do a story about it. And he's like, well, I need to get some time and whatever, and, you know, when things slow down. And finally he had the time. And I was out there for 4 days, you know, just hanging out with Matt for 4 days solid. And we rented out a rehearsal studio. We had Rob Zombie and John Five in the room next to us, and Alex Change over in the next room. So we had a pretty nice soundtrack going on.
Was this the first time you'd met him by any chance?
Who's that?
Was it the first time you got to hang with him?
Oh, this is I knew Matt. You know, I've known Matt for years, but this was like a first, like, you know, did like just a one-on-one hang. It wasn't any.
That's what I mean.
First major interview on him one-on-one.
Yeah, it was just one-on-one, and we were you know, both loading up amps and moving them into this place to set them up for photos and everything. But while we're doing this, he's also doing EVH work. You know, and he's on the cell phone and he's on the laptop and everything. And it was this guy right here was in the works, you know, the, you know, because Ed had that out on the 2015 tour and they were getting ready for production. And they wanted to do it kind of, you know, kind of like this other guy here, black and white, but they wanted to make the black part, the black grill white. So it's more like the striped 78 guitar. And Matt's like, no, it has to be gold. And he was just like all these details, you know, and he was just really setting the people over at FMIC, Fender FMIC straight. You know, this is how things have to be done. And he was like a pit bull. You know, he wasn't giving in. He wasn't hearing anything, you know, other than no, it has to be this. It has to evoke this. You know, this is the idea behind the EL34 thing, you know, is this black and gold motif, you know, with, you know, basically a Marshall, you know, but we can't do a Marshall because we're, you know, but we want people to think Marshall, you know, at least we want that psychological thing.
Those tonal qualities is what that EL34 was put out for.
Exactly. And so, and he was just really just, you know, he was working on all that, but yeah, it was amazing to, you know, to see between this personal thing that we're doing. And then at the same time, he's still putting in the time on the EVH stuff. And just, you know, smart, you know, just really smart and speaking up for stuff and just managing the brand, you know, making sure that all these details nothing's getting past them, you know, that everything is up front and this is the way we want it and not compromising at all, not giving in.
Yeah. Wolf and him, Wolf's known him all of his life.
Yeah, his entire life, because Matt was basically there. Matt came into the picture about the time that Wolfgang was born.
Right.
So
that's what I was going to ask you about. Yeah.
Well, Wolf was 4 years old in '94. So you when you met Wolf, when you were involved in this, he was 3 years old.
3 years old. Yeah, 3 years old. Yeah.
When's the very first time that you actually were in Wolf's press? Do you remember? I know you do.
It was that time. It was that time. I remember because we were doing the photo shoot for the Guitar Player magazine cover story that I did. And, you know, Val shows up, you know, I remember it was because it was November. It was like right around Thanksgiving time. And she shows up wearing this kind of long winter rain jacket deal. And Wolf comes in and he just runs across the floor there at 5150, you know, into his dad. They hug and everything like that. And it was just, you know, father and son. And
so that's the first time you got to see Edward in the presence of Wolfgang as well. Yeah. And him being a father.
And of course, Val was standing there kind of being the tiger mom a bit. And she was kind of glaring at Ed because Ed had been drinking Sharps. You know, this is when he was sober. And so he had those Sharps non-alcoholic beers and he had all these cans all over the floor. And she's looking at these cans all strewn around and thinking, oh, Ed's drinking again, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, yeah, he's drinking, but he's not drinking alcohol.
There you go.
You know, but she shot him some looks, you know, it was just like, you know, straighten up your act, boy. You know?
That's awesome. That's awesome that you got to actually be there for that moment and see the family interact like that. That's priceless.
It was very cool. And that's why I wanted to get to think, because I mean, like you know, the thing was, I'm very privileged when Ed announced, you know, he basically told Howard Stern and me first that Wolfgang was going to be the new bass player in Van Halen. And I saw that coming, you know, I saw that coming that day that I interviewed Ed back in '94. I knew from the way that Ed was talking, which is why I want to put this tape out there, because you can just hear the tone of the excitement in Ed's voice about him just taking interest in his guitars, noticing the guitars on the wall. I think Ed said something like, yeah, he came here into the studio and, saw all the guitars hanging up there and said, like, someday I want to play guitar just like my dad,
What's up?
And it's just like the pride and joy in his voice when he talked about that. I said, like, oh, this kid's going to be in the band. I knew it then, and so when it was announced, well, it wasn't that much longer. I mean, it was a bit longer, but not that much longer.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little over 10 years, but when it's announced that
Wolfgang flies too.
Wolfgang was going to be in the band, it's like, yep, here we are, I knew it. And that's why it's, when Roth said, 3 parts original, 1 part inevitable, it was,
Right.
it was inevitable that Wolfgang was going to be in Van Halen.
So,
unbelievably cool.
That press conference was, a dream come true.
But then now Wolf now is like, I mean, he's just like his dad, when it comes to the gear thing. And I'm just excited for what Wolf, I mean, we're already seeing what Wolf is coming up with. We have the SA-126, coming out. Will be sometime probably in 2023 towards the latter part of it. Cause as they said, they've still got some testing and some stuff to work out, and it has to go into, it's the prototype is done, but now it's going into production. It's making that guitar into a feasible production model.
Oh, okay. So they right on. There
Now,
you go.
am I correct in
heard
my understanding that the actual version model, you cannot order it as a relic version, which I really would love to have.
Well, it's hard to say what's going to be offered, at this point. I mean, they're open to things. I mean, I think the white relic thing is going to be kind of a just for Wolfgang kind of thing. I don't think they're going to be selling that, but hey, you never know. They may just relic, the sunburst or something, or who knows what. And
you might be able to order it that way if you wanted it.
Sure, they're very, they're very open-minded. And
your article. You're so good at covering these articles because you totally satisfy the nerd element in the gear in it's guitar world. You better. I mean, that's your main job.
Well,
but
I want to know. I'm a nerd,
Well, you're the king of them here, Chris. You really are, bro. But what's interesting, back in 2009, you did a Guitar World interview where Edward actually introduces the Wolfgang. And he talks about it. He goes into it big time in depth in that article. You also, at the same time, he makes at the same time you're talking about that, Wolfgang is quite young, okay? And he's talking about the guitar and the evolution of his vision. The way you cover that in that article almost mirrors articles that come from that in your writing. So you stay true to the actual message that EVH is trying to put out, and that kind of makes you a spokesperson for that brand, Chris.
And it's interesting because with this last round, this is an interesting thing because they talk to the people at Fender, and Fender has their own ideas, and like, oh, we want to do this, we want to do that, and Matt and Wolf said, we want to go to Guitar World, and we don't want to just go to Guitar World. We want to go to Chris, And I just was talking with Matt here just recently, and after the article's out now, because they basically gave us first crack, and they were talking with Matt about, well, what next? And Matt's kind of like, we don't need to do anything else, And they were like, what about Rolling Stone? And it's like, and that was kind of the idea, was to do Rolling Stone after us. And he's like, I don't think we need to do Rolling Stone.
So
it
wouldn't be the same type of interview.
No, it wouldn't be. It wouldn't be the same thing. And I think they realized that too, that it wouldn't be the same type of thing. It would probably get messed up. Unfortunately, there would probably be something that they would misreport or misconstrue or whatever, because they're not guitar nerds. That just happens. They don't speak the language. I mean, that's the thing about Ed. And that's what my tribute to Ed after Ed passed away, that I wanted to kind of set the record straight with people, because I've seen stuff on some of these fan forums and people are like, oh, blah, blah, blah. Ed didn't really like talking with the guitar magazines. He wanted to do this. It's like bullshit.
Oh
You
no,
know,
that's bullshit.
bullshit. Because it's like Ed loved the guitar. The guitar, you know, it's like he said, you know, when he was sitting there playing his guitar and his girlfriend came in, it's like, you love that guitar more than me. And he's like, yeah, right, I do.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because he did. The guitar was his first love,
right?
you know. And I'd say the only thing that came second or even came closer was his son, Wolfgang.
Well, in the article in 2009, it's called "Of Wolf and Man." It's interesting that his son's name Wolfgang. He's introducing the guitar he named after his son.
Yeah.
In 2006 now, Chip Ellis comes into the picture for a couple of reasons. You go into that in that article. You know, things, I think the term you used was things were stagnating a little bit. And so he comes in and he takes control of the whole deal. And he sort of reestablishes, and that's where he latches on and maintains his vision and the company vision for EVH. That's where he gets his hands on the reins of the company for the first time. You go into you want something to say something, Tony?
No. Go ahead.
Well, the thing that really impressed me about that particular article is the way that you bring out Chip Ellis's work, and it's showcased in that article.
Yeah, well, Chip is such an incredible part of the team.
Yeah,
and still is an incredible part of the team. Well, I wish I could share this because Chip sent me a document. It was his diary of the Wolfgang guitar project, and it's this huge. If you print it out, it's probably like about, you know, like a little small phone book.
Mm-hmm.
Just day by day, blow by blow account of what went into the Wolfgang project. And we were actually talking about possibly putting it in the book, but we would have had to probably add another 100 pages to the book. You know,
you have a quote in the 2009 article that Edward makes, and he says the guitar just makes you want to play. He's really, really happy. And another thing I want to shout out, you guys have a great way of pointing out Edward's highlights and pointing out moments where he's shining, like we love to see Edward shine.
Well, that's, you know, it's family. I mean, that's the thing, you know, and he made us family too, and that's the thing. I mean, that's why, again, when I say, when people say like, oh, Ed didn't like talking with guitar magazines, bull. It's like he came to, you know, I'm going to brag here, but it's like, you know, for the last 15 years of his life, he talked to Guitar World more than he talked to all the other magazines combined.
That's true.
You know, and
that's why you have the best articles.
And it was when we talked about guitars, and that's because we wanted to give him a place to talk about his guitars. My God, could you imagine if Jimi Hendrix wanted to talk about guitars? Wow. Wouldn't you love to see that? You know, as opposed to whatever kind of crap we got back in the 60s, these interviews with them that were just like, you know, what's your favorite color, man? You know, it's like, I want to, you know, I'm because I'm a guitar nerd. Yes, I want to talk about screws. I want to talk about output jacks. I want to talk about potentiometers.
Well, you do. You do.
And the one thing I wish that I still have to call somebody. I have to get on the phone because we shot that whole interview at the custom shop at the Fender factory in Corona, and it was professionally shot. You know, with a 4-person camera crew.
Oh, wow.
You know, and it's really, there's like, as I mentioned before, there's like a 15-minute excerpt of it online that they kind of edited down, but we've got the whole 2 hours that we were sitting there talking about the whole thing. And I want to see if I can someday get a hold of all that footage, because
we would love to see that, Chris.
Yeah, it's really cool. Just it's great to just see Ed talking, you know, and it's one thing to read it in the printed word, but when you see again the look in his eyes or whatever, the glint, you know, and he's talking about something.
He was so proud about the Wolfgang. He says in your article, I'll quote it, the guitar just makes you want to play, talking about the Wolfgang, and this is Edward. He says, after all, you don't work music, you play it.
Right.
That's one of the first quotes that I remember you from reading your articles. That's one of the first Edward quotes that I can remember.
Yeah.
Not only do you introduce us to Chip, you introduce us to him, you go in depth, you go full nerd as far as the gear. You talk about everything in that article that you talk about in the current article you just did. You go through pickups, you go through neck radius, you talk about every dynamic of the guitar but you leave the reader wanting more. You know, because you can't answer everything because
No, you can't. You can't.
The picture.
Well, you can't read everyone's mind either. You know, that's part of it.
Well, Chris, the best thing about that article in those days was this: in 2007, 2008, Van Halen came off of one of the greatest tours to date, a huge successful tour. Eddie had it was a highlight of his life. He was sober. He had just been engaged to Janie. You write about that in that article. I know you remember.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you remember all this stuff. And listening to you write about it, it's obvious that you love the shit out of Eddie Van Halen.
Oh, no doubt. I mean,
and it was so nice the way that you painted the picture of his fiancée. You know, it was a highlight. I remember it being a highlight in the Van Halen world and in Eddie's life because there was a lot of turmoil. I mean, they had to dodge turmoil constantly. And that's all part of that Van Halen drama that, you know, we don't really want to be part of.
Well, that's the thing is that, you know, so much people wanted, I mean, there was so much stuff going on. You know, I did some interviews with radio stations and they just wanted a bunch of gossip and stuff. They wanted a bunch of stuff about, well, when are they going to implode? You know, are they traveling on separate buses? You know,
sure.
Fight, you know, and sure. I heard these stingers that they had, you know, that they're making fun of Wolfgang. And it's like, my God, guys, he's a 15-year-old kid. You know, it's just, this stuff is just mean. It's not even entertaining.
The only avenues we had to get Wolfgang, the truth and between the garbage and the drama and the reality was articles through guys like you.
Well, and I respected Ed, you know, and there's a fine balance we had to walk between offering some stuff that was going to bring in readers and eyes and whatever, but at the same time being respectful of Ed, you know, because the last thing you want to do is stab him in the back for some quick, you know, turnaround to get, you know, a couple thousand extra readers or whatever. Just with Ed, it was an ongoing experience. And for me, it's just personally, I couldn't do it. You know, I mean, Eddie Van Halen was a part of the reason why I took my life journey that I did. You know, having seen him, as I mentioned, you know, in San Diego in July of '78, you know, and in hearing the album for the first time in its entirety, you know, the day it was released and everything, it set me on this path. I mean, I was a guitar player already. I had an appreciation for the guitar. I was an avid Guitar Player magazine reader, you know, at the time.
Sure.
But it's something about Ed just motivated me, you know, and it pulled me in this direction. You know, it's funny because when I left high school out of northern San Diego County, when I went out to Dallas first and hated it, you know, even though I played in the punk band and, you know, we actually had a pretty big following and were successful, but I couldn't wait to get back to Southern California, you know, and I hightailed it back and I'm like, I'm going to Hollywood, man. I'm going to LA. I went to UCLA. I transferred there just to be in ground zero, man. Van Halen in Halenville, man. That's where I was going, you know, and it's so funny because I just see stuff and it's like how often our paths we probably just like, you know, missed each other by minutes and stuff, because I know there's like some record stores I used to shop at Sherman Oaks where Ed would be in, and actually one of my high school friends was a limo driver for a while and he drove Ed somewhere once and just all this crazy stuff, you know. But yeah, I couldn't, you know, Ed, what he means to the guitar community is the last thing you want to do is insult the guy who revolutionized the guitar industry. You know, it's like,
absolutely, you
know, it's like, oh, let's, you know, if you're in the automobile industry, you want to shit on Henry Ford or something, you know, or whatever. It's like, it's to be similar to that. It's just, you know, I couldn't go there. And again, it's part of it is like, we are a guitar magazine and people complain about stuff, but we're not writing for so-called fans. We're writing for guitar players and again,
musicians in general,
true, but it's, you know, guitar players are the focus, and that was the idea. And it's like, well, you know, as a guitarist to another guitarist, you know, what do we want to talk about? You know, what do we want to hear? And that's what we would focus on.
On that point, Chris, I love the title of the magazine, okay? The Born Legacy, okay? That flat out says it all right there, okay? What he's had to endure his entire career, okay? Being the son of Edward Van Halen, okay? the guitar innovator of our time, of the century.
Yeah.
Number two, living under that shadow. Number three, picking up that legacy after the publicity of his life. Number one, as being the basis to replace Michael Anthony.
Yeah.
Number two, catch all the criticism that he did. Number three, having the cojones to back it up and rebut everybody and prove them wrong.
Yeah.
And then fourth, to carry that legacy forward and carry the burden of what he's had to endure publicly with the loss of his father, and then carry the business as well, along with Matt, Jim Brown, Mark Brown, and quite a few other pillars with Fender and EVH. And everybody needs to realize what is weighing on that man's head and how he has been able to endure all this over the past, not just, a couple of years since his passing, but his entire life.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And it's just shocking. And I have to do nothing but applaud the man. And he's not a kid anymore, people. I'm sorry. He's a grown man, and he's matured beyond his years than most people out there who are the internet, keyboard warriors.
Yeah.
He's
I have to just tip my hat to the man.
He's just the real deal. And that's the thing. I mean, it's just I think it was like after that first tour and seeing him play, and just seeing him come into his own. I mean, he still was a kid, but he just let that stuff. He didn't let that stuff get to him. He was able to build a shell around him, but still stay true to himself, which is just, I think, just an amazing thing, because it's a difficult position for anybody, and it can cause lots of people to crack. And at that age, it's very easy to fall into the trap of alcohol or drugs or whatever, or any number of things. And he just didn't let that get to him.
Not a single substance in his body ever.
Yeah. And he realizes, I think what a gift that he has. That's the thing. He really appreciates it. It's not like he's not like some spoiled brat or anything. And he's done the work. That's the other thing. It's not like this was just handed to him. He did the work. Do
you remember when he was 14 and picking up the bass? Do you remember any of that because by the age of 16, and you wrote in 2008, he would have been 16 in 2008. Yeah. And that Like Father, Like Son article that you wrote, that's, I think, my favorite article, period, that you've ever written.
That was just
it's not that it's it's my favorite because it's about Wolf, and it is quite literally the more grown-up version now. We've heard about him for a few years now till he grew up to this age. But Eddie says in the article that he's bragging on his son. He's talking about how he's going to be the new bass player. He announces that. He announces that he's been playing bass for 2 years. Do you remember any of that, Chris, specifically? And what kind of maturity did he have at the age of 16?
Well, he had a lot of maturity, but he also had a lot of oh man, how do I put it? He just he held his ground. That's the thing. You can see that in the interview where it's kind of like he kind of gives Ed shit from time to time, in a playful way, and
you do that in the article,
Yeah.
This article. Oh shit, Chris. That particular article, you guys in the chat, you need to read this. It's Guitar World 2008. He's 16 years old. Chris is interviewing him and Wolfgang, and it is the first time that I can remember dialogue back and forth in the article. It's Edward, Wolf, Edward, Wolf, Edward, Wolf, for a lot of response back and forth, and you get a really great idea of where his mindset is.
Yeah.
Because what I get out of it is when you read it, you hear you get an idea of what Edward's mindset is, and you realize about halfway through it that they are like this and they are on the same track.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's one of the best articles you ever wrote about Van Halen. It's my favorite because it's the world introduction to Wolf.
Yeah.
Period.
That's
Very
what was
cool.
the cool thing
Very
with like
cool.
when Wolf wrote on his Instagram about, you know, being on the cover, and it was kind of like, you know, he mentioned, you know, it was I'm kind of honored that I have basically both of Wolf's first cover stories.
Yes,
You know, because I reminded him that, you know, this is I did this one. This is your first on your own, but I also did your first cover with your dad, you know.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
everything, and he was, you know, very cool about that. And I think he, you know, it's good to see that he appreciated it. I'm just not some random writer out there or something like that. So,
Well, he had
Right.
the demeanor at 16 years old to actually, and I can't quote it verbatim, but I get it pretty damn close. He says, "It's just me and Al." He's talking about him and Uncle Al, and I think he says, he goes, "Boom, boom, boom, we're good," just like that. That comes out of a 16-year-old's mouth. I find that.
yeah, no,
His years, you know.
You know, I don't want to say he was cocky per se, but he was confident. You know, he knew that he'd done the work. And Keith, I got to hand it out to you, man, because you showed me that footage, you know, of you know, from those rehearsals, and that's just as amazing stuff. The world needs to see that, because like anybody who was a skeptic, oh my God, what a fucking powerhouse he was. You know, we saw the stage production in 2007 and 2008, but man, to see those rehearsals in 06, you know, you can see why Ed had every full confidence in bringing his kids with them.
Yeah.
You know, because it was just like, man, he was just on top of it.
You know, some of our friends, our Van Halen buddies in the Northeast, did get to see Wolf a couple of years before that, and a couple of cameo stage appearances on the 04 tour. Yeah,
on the 316 when he did those performances too. But you
I
know,
was one of them.
those are just a tiny glimpse. You know, but to see these rehearsal things are like, oh my God, because that's like, you know, it's in depth, because you just hear him doing all these classic Van Halen songs, and just like he's fully taking the bull by the horns, and just, you know, and going with it, you know, and adding his own dimension to it too, and it's cool. You know, that's the other thing. So it's like, again, I can see why Ed was just like, yep, he's ready.
And,
you know,
and that's one point I also want to bring up, because he's taking the bull by the horns. He's not only you know, going with his father's legacy, but he's also going his own way as well. And he talked, you ask him about that, you know, in the magazine article, what are the plans, you know, and he explains what the 5-year plan is, and it's always moving forward 5 years. But he's also talking about, you know, a hardtail with a 24 scale on a Kramer, you know, and a locking nut, which is, you know, nobody's had that before, and he's innovating it and working it. You know, granted, it's got to go through its paces, just like
it does.
He's doing with the 126 and with the bass, which we haven't even talked about yet either.
No.
Maybe it's important to say first, before wandering down any of those roads, that they both did say together that there are a lot of projects. So a lot of the dreams that we wish they would come out with are coming, but you know, you can't put them all out at once.
No, and it takes time, and it's part of the whole thing. And they've also got Ed's plans. That's the other thing. Ed, you know, he sadly, he knew his days were limited, you know, and he put together a plan, and it's a gift for all of us, you know, that he did that you know, it's sad that he was in his condition, but at least it wasn't like, you know, he just went outside and was hit by a bus and that's the end of the story. At least he took time to plan and leave something behind, you know, and so, you know, Ed's got some few tricks up his sleeve. So hold on, you know.
And the important thing is everybody at EVH and Fender are on board with it. And you have Matt and Wolfgang to back it up and to keep it directed in the right direction. Yeah.
And that was, you know, part of Ed's, you know, stipulation that these guys, you know, it was kind of his will almost, you know, to leave the company to Matt and Wolf, you know, but it's, you know, corporations can be what they are, and they can, you know, if they want to be weasels, sometimes they'll figure out legal wrangling or whatever, but they realize that these guys are like, this is the golden goose, you know, the golden geese, basically, you these guys. Matt is a wealth of knowledge about guitars. I mean, I can talk to him about other stuff. I mean, just not even on the EVH subject. I mean, we talked about the British amp collection that he has. Japanese guitars is another thing that we just both obsess over, and there's so many other things that he knows a ton about. He knows his stuff, and that's why Ed hired him in the first place.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. So that MIJ series is made over at that plant overseas in Japan.
Fujigen.
Is that right,
Yeah,
Chris?
Fujigen Gaki.
Yeah.
So then that's where the destroyer came from.
Exactly.
And the Ibanez V that he played before that, and Ed had a number of Fujigen guitars. There's a Les Paul Custom that I'm almost 100% certain was an Ibanez, that he'd borrowed for a show or whatever. That was in in 75 or something like that. So Ed liked his Japanese guitars too, and he had a number of them around, 5150. And Fujigen, I'm hoping, I got my fingers crossed that we're going to get a really 100% accurate Shark replica. And why not have it made at Fujigen? They made the original one anyway. So
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
So they probably got the same guys still working there, knowing how Japan is. It's like they've probably got the same guys who built Ed's guitar still working there.
That's true. Yeah.
So they really did say in it, and it was great to hear that a lot of the projects that we would hope they would do are gonna happen, and they're committed. Yeah, that's great to hear. But I think it makes it important though that they're saying this a couple years after Ed's passing.
Yeah, and it was time to do it. I think that's there was some concern about what's going on with the company, and I think a lot of people weren't really certain and a little bit concerned and everything. I mean, I wasn't, because I knew with Wolf and Matt at the helm, as soon as that was announced, it was only a couple of weeks after Ed passed that they announced that they were taking over the company, and I was confident. But the general public out there doesn't know them like a lot of us know Matt and Wolf. They know Matt, they know Wolf better than they know Matt, but I know Matt, and it's like, oh, no brainer. It makes perfect sense. Yeah,
Matt's been with Ed since 91 tour.
Since 91, yeah. So it's as I kind of said, I mean, it's 60 years combined experience. Okay, now Wolfgang was a baby, but he was just grew up in that environment, so he absorbed that stuff and 24/7 in a way that you wouldn't even if you were just working with them, So, and of course, I'd say there's like a good 15, 16 years where I think Wolf was really focused on that, especially because he saw the EVH company starting to happen, and he was around as that was happening. And, and of course, over the years and having done 3 world tours, plus all the stuff that he's done, with Alter Bridge and on his own and everything, now he has a perspective,
Sure.
and he has his own preferences, and that's obviously he doesn't really like whammies, doesn't like Floyd's, he likes stop tail pieces. He likes semi-hollow guitars, there's other things that he likes. So, I'm really curious to hear this song on the new album that he did with the Villette Citron Shark baritone, which is a guitar that's fascinated me and mystified me, because I've seen early pictures of 5150 where you can see that there's those low Zower shots where you can see like Ed sitting at the console in 5150 back in 1983. And you can see this in the background amongst a couple basses and the Frankenstein and the V. And then there's another shot a little bit later in the mid 80s of 5150. You can see these guitars lined up along the studio, the kind of the window between the console and the main room. And
in 85,
my Ed's in there again. And it took a while to figure out what it was, and I finally did. And we spoke about it. And then, of course, a couple of weeks later, after Wolfgang's well into recording the new album, he puts a picture on his Instagram, and there's the Viette, and it's like, there's that bass, the baritone I was talking with you about, and it was just a happy accident, it turns out, because I asked Matt about it. I said, like, did I plant that idea in Wolf's mind in some way by mentioning it during our interview. He's like, not exactly. This actually, we were working on a song, and he decided that a baritone would be really good for that. So, thanks to Adam Reaver and his beautiful wife who went up there, and she shot photos of all of Ed's guitars, every single one. They cataloged everything, and
Wow.
we
need that catalog
like that. So now, Matt knows exactly where something is, because you're talking about well over 700 guitars that Ed
That's
had.
crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah. And so anyways, Matt says, like, I just pulled up the database, looked up baritone, and it's like, hey, we have 6 different ones, so he pulled all of them.
And a week later, he also pulled out the SG that he used on Dirty Movies.
Yeah, exactly.
And posted that on Instagram as well.
Exactly. Yeah. But anyways, he said, like, we tried out the baritones and the Viet one. It was just that was the one. But it was just funny because they were thinking about the conversation we just had about that. It was almost like something like it was a weird cosmic occurrence, that happened. And there's only like 16 of those in existence in entirety. So
wow.
Yeah. So it's a rare beast.
That's awesome.
That is, continuing that legacy that, continues.
I think it's great that he's pulling out his dad's guitars. And I mean, they're tools, they're out there. And, I mean, that's why Ed got them in the first place. They were his tools, he created stuff with these things. I'm still trying to figure out what Ed did with the Viet. I think it was some of the stuff for the Wildlife soundtrack.
I was about to ask you that.
He did. Yes.
There may be some buried overdubs in 1984, I think, because he just, if Ed had something around and it was out and about, he was using it. That's the thing, So it wasn't just a wall hanger or something that he thought looked pretty, See, it's in a number of those early 5150 studio photos. Mm-hmm. So he was doing stuff with that thing.
I believe that may have also been used in pre-production or actual recording of some of the 5150 album.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And we were talking about the idea for what was it, Good Enough, and
right.
And the other song, the one that didn't come out, but where you put the A string,
I Want Some Action.
I Want Some Action, exactly.
Yes.
And I think that came from the baritone, but it, still wanting to have the fluidity, on the upper strings, but wanting that extra bass, thump. So.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Right on.
But yeah, Wolf picking up on that stuff, So I asked, are we going to see a baritone? Who knows? I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere down the line, 5-6 years from now, we see an EVH baritone of some sort.
I'm still waiting for that bass to come out because Ronnie Ficarro, he's been working that thing since the beginning of the first tour. That Oxblood bass is freaking beautiful.
Yeah.
And I got a chance to see that when they came into town on March 1st at the House of Blues. And I was front and center in front of Wolf. And first thing I wanted to do was look over at that because that bass was just so eye appealing.
That was mentioned in the article too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And the cool thing is, I mean, because you look at the basses that Wolf had, out with VanHalen, and how he's taken that, and he could have easily put out any of those basses,
Right, sure.
But he put his own stamp on the bass. It's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this. So he took it to another level. And again, that's going to probably be about the same time that the SA-126 comes out. It's still, nice. They finished the prototype stage. Really? It's now going into the, tooling up for production stage now.
Yeah.
Ready for NAMM.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Yeah.
We'll be looking for it.
Mm-hmm.
I know he will.
Yes, I will. Yes, I will.
Sir. Yeah, he will.
Hey, you know what time it is, guys? It's trivia time, I believe.
Oh, it's trivia time.
Where's that drill? There it is. Get your thinking caps on board, the girls.
Officially, trivia time. It is. So we're going to toss you some nearly impossible Van Halen trivia your way. Yeah, and let me show you guys this. So the winner tonight is going to be the second entry to the, where is it at? The Halenville Live Lost YearEnd contest. 4 of you are going to join all of us and a special guest on the 30th in a private backstage bash with all kind of prize. We'll have trivia back there for some really big, cool Van Halen prizes. But these are what's left. Holly Lewis won last week, and she's got one on the way. She may have already gotten it. Let me know if you do, Holly. But plus, what we're playing for is a Van Halen $1 million.
Must have.
How about it? And new on the block for prizes, I'm going to throw you a Van Halen poker chip.
That's very cool.
Or ball marker.
There you go. There you go.
I can't putt, so I need a ball marker this big. And on the other side, that's what it looks like. What do you think, Charles?
Must have, buddy.
Yeah, dude.
I wish I had one.
Here's the thing, though. I'm giving that away tonight. Now, these poker chips, you'll see more of these because we have a few of them. And on the back of each one of them is a different one of Eddie's guitars.
That's very
So,
cool. You're going to float those out.
I can't show you, but there's that many, and no two are the same.
That's right.
And we're giving this one to you tonight, and that one will be gone. But so every Eddie guitar you can imagine, and I'm going to put these in here for safekeeping.
Nice, dude.
Not every guitar, imagine, but the good cast of characters, definitely.
Yeah. So
the real good batches.
A good 15 of them. So
yeah, I had a chance. Tony showed these to me. Wow. So all I have to say is stay tuned, boys and girls, because you think this is good, you think this is good, but wait till you see these. And these aren't your standard poker chips either. These are nice, heavy-duty ceramic ones. Really nice. Well done. All
cool.
personal.
They'll make a terrific addition to your Van Halen collection for sure.
Wish I had
Especially when we get down to the man. I can't believe some of the guitars on the back of these things.
I can't believe you're giving them away.
Nah, I got to, man. You know. But so we're gonna do trivia. This is week 2. If you're the winner, there's an email address down below. Trivia winner's email. Email me your name and address. I'll mail you out a manila envelope about yay big that'll get there in about a week. It'll have some cool stuff in it. That backstage laminate, the poker chip, the bill. We'll throw some guitar picks in there too. Yeah, we'll make it lovely for you. And you'll be invited to our Lost YearEnd contest on the 30th. Now, here's the thing. On 30th, as a winner, you'll be at our backstage private party, but the following night on New Year's Eve, you will be invited to be on the panel here on Fruitcake Tony's New Year's Rockin' Eve. Starts 11 p.m. Eastern on New Year's Eve right here. But all you winners, all 4 of you from the month of December right there, will all be invited to be here on the panel New Year's. We'll have a bunch of special guests New Year's. Joe Wentz will be playing live in the first hour. It's going to be hopefully not a wild and crazy night, but it will be, won't it, Charles?
Yes, it will.
I'm sure.
And remember, Holly is not eligible this week, and I'm not eligible, so the playing field is even more level than before.
Oh, so what are you saying? So if you were in the chat, they wouldn't have a chance. Is that what you're saying?
I'm just saying you have a much better chance. That's all. Nothing more than that. Much better chance.
All right. This is a cool question.
And it's not an easy one either.
Yeah. So here we go. Nearly impossible Van Halen trivia. Get ready, type, kids.
Hey,
and watch the chat, Keith, for
I
our
will.
correct answer.
I will.
All right. Yeah. All right, here we go. Eddie Van Halen and David Lee Roth ran into each other on the street in the early 90s after many years of not seeing each other. Name both the street and the city that this happened. In that order. Street and city. Street first and city.
In that order. No Ed. No Andy.
No
It's quiet out
takers
there.
yet.
Sorry, Silva.
All right. Nope.
Oh, we've got a winner.
Where is it at? I don't see
Greg
it yet.
Zeppelin has won.
It's not up. Matt, there it
There you
is.
go.
There's the
Greg Zeppelin.
man, it happened quick.
Excellent, Gretsch.
Yeah.
Well done, brother. My goodness.
Right
Very
on,
well done.
Gretsch Zeppelin.
Yeah.
There is our
Yay.
win. So dude, you're hooked up, man. You're in the party. You're here on the panel New Year's if you want to be. You have an invite. I'm gonna mail you some pretty cool stuff. Send me. He's won here before, dude. I know you've won. Send me your email address again so it's on the top, so I don't have to dig for it. Thank you, bro. You're the winner. Winner number 2 of our contest. I'm gonna mail you out a cool laminate like this.
Nice.
Poker chip, a bill, some picks.
You get the first poker chip, bro.
Yeah, dude. Right on, man. Gretsch Zeppelin is the winner. Let me take this.
In honor of the release of the 78 relic.
Yes.
Yep.
I'm gonna show you this again. So yeah, I figured we'd start there. Like that.
That's right.
So it's got the Van Halen logo on one side and that.
Nice.
And they're heavy ceramic, so
And there's the 78 relic right there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So yeah.
Chris, have you gotten your hands on one of them yet?
Not yet. No. I had ordered one and I'm still waiting. So even I can't get one. You know, it's they're so hot right now. So
Yeah.
heavily back ordered.
Huh.
Yeah.
They're
Are they?
extremely, yeah, they're in the big want on the big Christmas list this year.
Yeah. No, it's a hit. It's a big hit. So I think I got in a little bit late on the pre-order side of things.
Yes.
So I'm a little down on there, but I did get this though just today. So my Cheap Trick Lab Whiskey 1977, you know, it's right
Very nice.
the peak of you know, when Van Halen was ruling the Sunset Strip. So
And it's kind of strange that you mentioned that performance right there, because if I recall, one of your, well, I wouldn't say co-workers, but one of your colleagues, that show is where he first met Edward, Steve Rosen.
I think so. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's where he first
so.
met Steve, and not only that, but it's like it's also kind of just a cool time frame thing because the black and white finish appeared
Yes,
just a couple weeks later.
exactly. Precisely.
So it was actually about a month after these shows, so that it appeared. You know, we made its debut. So
And also, along with the release of that guitar, I love the fact that they put out the video. That
Yes.
EVH released that video on how to set up the guitar and how it was tuned correctly, you know, and how it was wound and using the 3-in-1
There's the
auto.
video
and,
right there.
Yeah.
yeah, Ed had told me about
Very
maybe
smart.
70% of those details, but not all the finer details. So that was really cool. Even I learned something from that. So
Mhm. Such beautiful nuggets right there.
yeah.
And that's what all of us guitar geeks are looking for. And that's, and that's why we always followed this magazine, because this is all the stuff that we were looking for, you know, and you guys would always put out that kind of information, and they nipped the rose in the bud there immediately, and they said, nope, we're going to drop it before anybody else.
I remember when gosh, back in the day, because it's like, you'd always have to wait. I would like buy every fan magazine out there, buy Hit Parader and Circus and stuff,
Right.
just for the Van Halen photos. And I remember it was the Wolf and Rissmiller concert guide.
Wow.
They were a concert promoter in Southern California, and they put out this book, and it was like seating charts of various venues and stuff like that. And I forgot what else was in there, but it was this book. It was kind of expensive, but I bought that. I shelled out the extra bucks for that because it had a picture of the back of the Frankenstein, and you could see the springs, and you could see that the V shape,
Right.
and everything like that. And it's just like, that was just like another detail, it was like uncoding the thing. It was like, I had the two, and actually had the third one in the middle, just going up straight, but I remember that. I was like, oh, I got to get that. Cause it's like, now I can see the back of the guitar too,
And that was one thing I always noticed with the Van Halen one album cover, cause he's sitting there holding up the guitar. You look at that tremolo system, that's not a standard trem setup.
No.
Okay. And you notice that in the new one now. I mean, all of us guitar geeks notice it and knew it, but he had different setup on it. He had Mighty Mike parts on there also.
Right. And that was like for a very short period too. That was just like, I think it was almost probably like just right at the photo session, like probably right before and right after. And then he went back to, the 57 or the 61. It was a 61. Right. It was a 61 tremolo. I know they've said like the 57 or 58 or whatever out there, but it was from the 61. So
I love how they did the EVH in gold to make it look like the Gibson sticker.
Yeah. All good details. And the good thing is that we didn't have to shell out $25,000 for this one either. So it's not exact like the $25,000 one is, but hey, good enough,
Yeah, it's not. That's cool. 1895.
And with a couple little modern things like the truss rod wheel, and everything like that.
Right.
So that's always a bonus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like the large headstock on it as well. And the scoop is a little bit more pronounced on the side there.
Yeah. It's the large headstock. I mean, it makes a difference. Ask Ingve, he'll go.
Absolutely.
He'll tell you all about it,
It does.
Yeah. Looks a lot like the original though.
Yeah.
And the little string tree there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris, your writing hasn't changed.
There's the
I'm curious how you feel about your legacy as a writer at this point.
Well, to me, it's just, I want to capture these people. It's not about me so much as the people I'm covering, and that's part of it is I want to leave behind, a record of certain things. And that's why with Ed, it was just like every chance I got to talk with Ed, it was like, heck yeah,
Sure.
I wish biggest regret is that we didn't get to do the deep dive on Van Halen too. I had just had that motorcycle accident just right before that was supposed to happen. And, and then it was all downhill from that point onwards. But I wish we could have done the deep dive on that. I wish I could have really gone back and done a deep dive. I talked to them a lot about the first album over the years. It was always like little bits and pieces and interspersed in my various things. And when the book, I kind of organized those from several different interviews and put them together in one and mixed them up with some of the Steve Rosen stuff. But I wish, I could have gone back on that. It's just, there's so much stuff. I mean, I wish I could have gone over again. Gosh, what album was it? Even 5150, I find there's not real satisfying interviews with Ed that were done back in the day.
Yeah.
5150 album, which is surprising. It kind of knocks me out a bit that
you would think that it would be more saturated with that album than anything else.
Yeah, because it was a change, and everything. And I get it, I guess, but guitar magazines back then used to be a little bit different. They didn't do features on every album. So it was kind of like, oh, well, we've done Eddie Van Halen. We have to, they were kind of almost like an encyclopedia. I know when I was at Guitar Player magazine, when I was there for a couple of years, it was kind of like an encyclopedia. Well, who haven't we covered? We should do a historical article, especially on older blues artists and stuff. I remember Jazz Obrecht because he covered a lot of blues artists, and I had mentioned something. Well, gosh, there's not really a great story on T-Bone Walker, so I took that one under under my wing a bit and, coax that out. But the thing is, I hope people understand a little bit more about what goes on with this stuff, that it's not all mystery, and that it's and find your own sound. I guess it's the other thing. It's just, because that's what all these other people have done, is just, if you find something, go with it. I mean, it's great to copy. I mean, hey, we all love to copy Ed's licks and stuff and play things note for note, and that's cool, but at the same time, it's also great to just, realize that you maybe you aren't Eddie Van Halen and you are you, and just nurture that.
That's me.
Right.
That's me. I mean, I can never play like Eddie,
Yeah.
But I've got his toys. I've got one of his lunch boxes over here. I got Black Betty up here on the, being guarded by Frankenbubble. But, all I'm gonna do with it is enjoy myself and make my own sound out of it. Just like he always wanted everybody to do.
And that's the great thing about the EVH stuff, is that it's not just to sound like Ed. You can do that. You can copy Ed's. I took pictures of all his amp settings, and if you want to sound like Ed did on the 2012 and the 2015 tours, I've got all his amp settings. And you can copy that. But you can also, there's, like as we mentioned in the article, there's a bunch of country guys out there playing EVH gear.
There is. That's right. We've known that for a little while now. It is important too, Chris, to note that when there are a lot of Van Halen fans here, and you do a lot of Van Halen writing, but you can't pick up a Guitar World magazine, Charles, and for all the articles, there you do a lot, and not just Van Halen, but all rock music. And you'll see it probably in about we're getting towards the end of the month here. I just did a deep dive on the Beatles, and it was all kind of like my old Tonal Recall thing on the Beatles. So I didn't get as deep into like each amp setting and strings and whatever. I kind of mentioned that more in wider strokes, but I cover about a dozen Beatles songs. And a lot of it's speculation because, unfortunately, man, the Beatles, it's like, here's one of the biggest bands of all time. And there's a lot of stuff that isn't documented about them when it comes to the recording in the studio. I mean, we have, again, we know there's these great recording the Beatles books, and there's the Andy Babiak book on the gear and everything. But putting everything together, we don't know exactly what guitars are used on what songs. So I kind of had to put on my critical ears and kind of make a lot of assumptions about stuff. I mean, the one thing was the end. The 3 solos that they trade on the end, and 3 distinct guitar tones. And I've seen so much BS out there. It kind of pisses me off. Like someone said, like, oh, they're all plugged into Fender Twins with the cranked all the way up. You know what a Fender Twin sounds like cranked all the way up? It sounds like Steve Jones on his first Sex Pistols album. It doesn't sound like the end. It just doesn't. Nice,
you know how loud a Fender Twin turned all the way up is? The lab coats at Abbey Road would have hung them all. Yeah. They would have had them all taken off by the police, by the bobbies and in the paddy truck, taken down to, Wormwood Scrubs. So, I made a guess. But the thing that killed me the most was John Lennon's tone on the end. It's like you listen to that. Listen to John Lennon. He's the third one in the line in the solos. And it's just this mid-range. It's just really pukey. And it's like that's got to be one of those Vox, hybrid solid state tube amps with the mid-range boost on it. It has to be. I can't think of anything else that it could be. And it's just like, but it's, again, I had to assume. I don't know for certain, but it's just, I'm surprised at what I've seen out there. And when you listen to it, it's like there's no way that there's fuzz tone. I know Harrison definitely is using fuzz. I'm not sure if McCartney is on his solo. I think he's going a little bit more of the straight ahead, guitar casino into amp kind of approach. But
Harrison.
No, Harrison. I think Harrison was using either. I think I determined because of the brightness of it. I think that he was using the Rosewood Telly, though he may have been using the Lucy Les Paul. I'm not 100% certain. I think he was using a small deluxe and a fuzz face.
Wow,
that's my assumption because that's just it's got that fuzz tone grit to it, not when you crank it all the way up to the idiot setting, but when you put it in those mild or middle settings. I mean, lots of people have used fuzz faces from Eric Johnson, Hendrix and whoever, and they can get, rather sweet. lead tones out of them. It's not just all, over the top grit. So,
it's interesting. Just to piggyback that a little bit with this most recent article that you've written. It's a really great article, Chris. I know I keep harping on it, but the way that you not only embrace the gear, it's full nerd, dude. There's no aspect that you really don't go into that is going to create curiosity in the reader, which is your job, by the way, and you do a really good job of it. But what I noticed out of this article is not only does EVH not lose their sight of the future, but they've repositioned themselves from being gear for people to emulate and be Edward, because a lot of it in the last several years has been, man, I want to sound like Edward Van Halen. I want his guitar. I want his amp. I want to know what he had so I could emulate his tone. We hear guys talk about it all the time.
Sure.
But in this article, they've done a 180, and they're talking about taking his ideas, and they're not talking about it. They're doing it, ironically, and you're talking about it. His gear now appeals, and you had mentioned a little before, to all genres of music. If you're a guitar player, there's a use for a 5150 amp.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
No matter if you play hard rock, reggae, country,
they cover the gamut. And I mean, I think the biggest thing for me was, the 5150 Iconic, I reviewed the combo.
What do you think about that amp? I meant to ask you a question about that.
No, I really like it. But I think the best thing about it is the price point. I mean, when have you gotten an amp with that kind of power and that kind of attitude, for under $1,000? And the fact that they're doing that in this day and age, is I think amazing. I think they're offering. I mean, I have, some of the 5150 Wolfgang guitars. They're under $1,000 and they're great.
Yeah.
It's like they're really a very good, solid value. You don't have to spend big bucks, and to get what Ed played, or to get just what Ed played. You can get this entry level stuff, and it's all really good value. The 5150 Iconic, I think, has an interesting voice to it that may not work for everybody initially, or if you're thinking, oh, it's this or it's that. But once you get the hang of it, or once you pair it up with the right guitar, man, it's really quite a sweet sounding thing.
It's funny because you make a really great point in this last article talking about Edward and his mindset. And, you say, Edward, give me more than I need is what he would say. Give me more than I need, and I'm going to dial it back and bring it to what I want. I found that really interesting. Really interesting, and the way you worded it was outstanding.
Yeah, the way you word things, Chris. I think what I found important about the article also is that you kind of nonchalantly got them to open up about things. And I'll give you an example where, and I think you did it more than once, but when an interviewer asks somebody something, but when he says, is this going to be available soon? But when you say, when are we, being a guitar nerd, when are we going to see this, or when are we going to see that? But at that point, they kind of opened up to you, and that was great to read that.
It was just, I mean, I do kind of wish I could put out some of the video, because it was just, like I said, it was just really positive. It was just kind of like this glowing positivity thing that I just was like really, it was kind of funny because I'm a wine drinker, and I have a friend out in Oregon, Pinot Noir, that makes Pinot Noir, and I was speaking with him a couple weeks afterwards, and we catch up from time to time, and he's also a guitar player and a guitar nut, and he just noticed something in the tone of my voice, like, you just sound like really in a good place, and it's like, well, I am. I just, I had this great conversation, with Wolfgang and Matt Bruck and everything, and just like, man, it was just, I'm pumped, I'm jazzed, I'm happy for them, and I see it on this roll. I see it from the photos coming from Europe, on Wolfgang's tour and everything like that, that it's, there's, a joy, and again, it's like the grieving, there's the sadness part of it's over. Now it's the celebration has really started to be.
It's showing too. It shows.
Yeah.
It shows,
Yes.
Chris. Yeah.
And speaking of the photographs, we have to give a big shout out to Andrea.
Oh
who
yeah,
did
definitely.
phenomenal. I mean,
Yeah.
that's her first shoot also for
Yeah.
a major magazine, and she's been following him the whole tour, including.
You want to hold those up, Keith,
phenomenal.
for us, and we'll show
Yes,
them?
absolutely. I mean, she's done this cover. This is her work, and then on top of that, let's see. Let's go back to this picture right here.
Yeah.
Okay, beautiful shot of them.
Hold it still.
That's a
Nice.
wonderful photograph.
Sorry about the glare.
No worry.
Okay, and that looks like it's outside the mansion. And this beautiful shot looks like it's outside 5150. And I can only tell because of the gray stucco, the paint job.
Yeah. They have completely redone 5152. So Matt was really excited.
I wanted to ask you about that as well.
They've completely modernized it. And I know there's a bunch of you who want it to be kind of kept as a historical relic and everything like that, but it is a living, breathing, working studio.
Oh, it is, and that, it's Wolf's spot, and probably will be his whole life.
Yeah, it will.
He's already said that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's private.
Mm-hmm.
That's private property for sure.
But I've got an open. Like I said, I've got to get out there. I know he's on his way back home, and I don't know if I can make it out before they hit the road again. I'll probably go after. He wraps up this next leg of shows here in the U.S. I'll probably head out there, but hold on, because you guys are all going to be. I'm going to bring you all along for the tour of 5150 in one way, shape, or the other.
That is so cool, Chris.
Yeah. Nice.
That is so badass. Hey, Holly Lewis had a question for you, Chris, and I'm going to ask it to you. She sent it to me. I'm just going to ask you if that's okay. It says here, Chris, Steve Lukather stated on the Sunset Sound interview that they sent the tapes to 5150 for him and Don Landy to work on for the Beat It solo. What is his opinion on Luke's statement? What is your opinion, Chris?
Can I be Rick James for a second?
Absolutely, man.
Cocaine is a hell of a drug.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
No. You know why? 5150 did not exist at that point in time. I'm still working on the timeline. I'm still, man. If I've been pleading with Sunset Sound, get me that work order, even the work order with Luke and Picaro that they did, so I can put together a timeline and time frame. But I have narrowed down to the best of my knowledge, but I just don't have an actual document. But I'm estimating that Ed recorded the Beat It solo sometime between mid-June and mid-July of 82. 5150 was really in the planning stages at that point, if it was even there. I can't remember the exact date when Ed went over to with Don to Frank Zappa's to talk about doing Dweezil's single and everything like that. But that's where the idea was planted. And Ed's head to build 5150, to build his own studio. We know that was after Diver Down came out. So 5150 did not exist in 82.
Yeah, we've often wondered that.
It just
they played
didn't.
in North Carolina.
And Luke had
in
told
July.
me when I interviewed Luke for the book that he thought that Ed did the solo at Sunset Sound. I'm kind of questioning that too, and I sent Drew out to look to see if he could find any work orders of Ed and Don working, at Sunset anytime in like 82 from March through. I know they were on tour from July onwards, but just to see if there was anything. But from the stories Ed has told, the recollections, and I'm actually working on a rather detailed story on Beat It that I hope to get out in the next couple of months on what happened. I just need these little puzzle pieces because I don't want to commit to something. In fact, I was supposed to do something in an issue coming out after the Beatles issue. Just a little short story on it. I told Damien over there, I said, like, pull the Beat It story because it's just not ready yet. It's half cooked, it's the souffle is going to crumble. But No, it was not recorded at 5150 because 5150 did not exist. I don't think it was recorded at Sunset Sound like Luke told me. And this is the problem with anyone's, testimony, memory, whatever, because that's the problem with this whole story in general. Is I'm finding there's a bunch of people telling stories and they have some details that make sense and other things that don't. And that's when I'm trying to piece this all together. And it's the problem with people's recollections. They don't remember. I was trying to remember, what I was doing in 82. And it turns out what I thought I was doing in 82 was actually stuff I was doing in 83. So there you go.
Did we all hear the version that he met Quincy Jones in some studio somewhere?
No, well, it didn't work out that way. It was a phone call. It was basically Quincy. That's the story that Ed tells about, he was chilling with Val at home and the phone rings and some guy, hey, it's Quincy, and like Ed's like, yeah, who are you, motherfucker? Hangs up,
That's right.
And you go through about 3 or 4 times with Quincy trying to call him back and finally gets through to him and says, it's Quincy Jones, man, and he's like, Ed, hold on, it's Quincy Jones. Like, oh, okay. But that's the thing with the timeline. I am under the estimation. I don't want to go into too much story and give away too many of the details, but basically it was a break. There was a break, and Ed had told me personally that, we were on a break before we went on tour, and all of my other bandmates were off, traveling on vacation, whatever. No one was around, so no one could tell me no. I didn't have anyone around to ask if it was okay if I did the Michael Jackson thing, so I just went ahead and did it. Because no one could tell me I couldn't do it, or they didn't.
He didn't accept any money for that, did he?
He didn't accept any money for that. I have my own theories about why that is. But so basically, and there's the other thing, and it's corroborated by the Rosen interview. Unfortunately, Rosen gets the dates wrong. He says like, oh, Ed recorded the solo sometime in like early 83. Well, it's like, well, the album had already been out for a couple months by that point, so that's impossible. He also gets the date of the Motown live broadcast wrong. So that there's a few questionable things in his book about the dates and his record keeping. But the interview does say, and I know it happened not too long after Beat It was recorded, and Ed does say in the interview that he rented the amp that he used on the session. And why would he rent an amp when he's got a studio or he's, got, a house, or whatever? He's got all these Marshalls and everything like that. Well, because they were going off on tour. I don't want to get off sidetrack too much because it does bring up the question, well, what about the number one Marshall, the Holy Grail Marshall that he said he wasn't ever taking out again after it got lost when they came back from Japan? That's a big question mark. But anyways, Ed said he rented an amp. And there's a couple other people out there. If you look on the Wikipedia page, someone tries to say like he borrowed Alan Holdsworth, Hartley Thompson solid state amp. I don't think that's true because during that time frame that would have been happening, Alan was out doing shows. So, and Alan was not a rich guy with a whole bunch of amps to just loan, his amp out to his rock star buddies. The amps he brought over from England to the United States were his, So I don't think that happens. But unfortunately, the guys, Hartley Thompson's son's been out there saying, oh, Ed used my thing and it's the truth and blah, blah, blah. And a bunch of people believe it. But there's no real evidence for that. I don't want to get off because there's a whole story here, but I don't want to get off the sidetrack. But basically, I think it was between June and July. He's chilling with Val. Bandmates are gone. They're getting ready to go on tour. All the gear's loaded up in trucks. Ed has to rent an amp, And Ed did say, as I've mentioned before, in 2012, he had a recollection. And this was a crazy thing for him to remember in 2012, all these years, 30 years after the fact, that Michael was over at Westlake. He went to Westlake to record the solos, according to Ed. And Michael was in the next studio over working on the E.T. album, which was this kind of spoken word, thing to go along. It wasn't the soundtrack to E.T. It was kind of this special project, Michael Jackson presents E.T. type of thing. So that was another project he had going on. That was a weird detail for Ed to remember because even most Michael Jackson fans probably can't remember that he did this E.T. album. And when did the work on the E.T. album start? Mid-June of 82. Bingo. So all the ducks are starting to line up, the pins are starting to fall. So no, Ed did not record it at 5150, the long version of the short answer,
And also, Chris, Ed asked a question. Do you know of a track that EVH contributed to a Chris Cornell song that never saw the light of day?
Yes, I know that they worked together, and that Ed was considering actually doing a project, whether it was going to be called Van Halen or not. There was a period there in the early 2000s where Ed and Chris were hanging out for a bit and doing things together. I don't know the specific track, so I couldn't tell you about that, but it wouldn't surprise me if there was something. Because I know that, it's funny because when I interviewed Ed for the Guitar Aficionado thing, he had this guitar organ, this Continental guitar organ thing, or a Vox or something like that.
Right.
And he was saying, like, I was, working with Chris Cornell, and I pulled this thing out and just started making all these noises, and Chris just starts singing to it, and like, man, he'll still sing to anything, like, but he was figuring stuff out. It's like Ed loved that type of creativity, so I could easily see the two of them coming up with something together, and that's what they were doing. They were working on some project that neither of them knew what it was going to be. So I'm I can say with 90% certainty that he did do something of some sort out there. I mean, again, I've heard the second Van Halen Sharon album, that a lot of people don't know exists. There's like a complete album out there, and it's brilliant. It's what the Van Halen 3's first album should have been. They should have taken their time and done the second record. And why the second record didn't come out, I mean, it was basically, unfortunately, record labels at that time in the late 90s, it sucked in the music industry. It was horrible. Yeah. And no one wanted to take the risk. I think the album was maybe a bit ahead of its time too, and I don't think Van Halen fans would have been ready for it. But
no, they wouldn't have been, Chris. No,
yeah.
They would not have been.
Yeah.
But for anybody out there, get this out there, okay? Get this, because it shows so many wonderful pieces of Edwards' collection. It's off the charts, and I think I'm on the page right here. This is the guitar that you're referring to.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah,
that's the one. Yeah,
yeah.
And it's just such a wild and varied collection that he has. And when you said 700 pieces.
The sad thing was after we did this thing, Matt and I talked to Ed about doing a book. And having Ed go through every guitar and telling that, because every guitar had a story. He had a reason for every guitar he had. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff in his collection which is going to be like, okay, he has like boatloads of PVs, boatloads of Music Mans, boatloads of EVH stuff. So there's a lot of that stuff in his collection. But he, the core. Yeah. There's probably about 300, 400 guitars of just stuff that he collected over the years. He could tell you the story behind every one and where he used it and what the reasoning behind it was for buying that guitar. And that's, unfortunately, he just wasn't into the idea of doing a book. But, I
bought this magazine for one reason only, for my plane ride down to Cabo with my wife and my family. And I could not put this thing down. I read it over and over. And I just consider this a must read for anybody who's a gearhead for any of Eddie's stuff.
That was my experience with Ed was, spending a couple days up at 5150, him pulling that stuff out, seeing all these cool guitars, seeing the iconic stuff, holding the 5150, holding the Frankenstein, oh my God, oh my God, the religious experience, but then seeing the root guitar, this dragon snake,
and don't forget Les Paul's first guitar ever.
Yes. I can't tell that story right now, but the beach photo shoot, we're just down from Val's house, so that's where we did that. So again, I'm hanging out with Val. Wolfgang was living at Val's house at the time, in Malibu, and we walked down the back onto the beach and did the photo shoot, and it was Janie's idea. So, I mean, it's one of my Kevin Scanlon who did the photos. I still have to get a print from him because there's a photo of Ed just one of the shots where Ed has the guitar over his shoulder. He's just walking down the beach. He has his back to you.
Yeah. Oh, and, it's got his back to you. Okay.
Yeah, he's like walking away from the camera, and you see the footsteps and everything. And to me, it's just like that's that's what I really wanted to put in my tribute article, because it was kind of like, he's leaving us, but and it's black and white, but it's just one of those things in the magazine thing. They have to show faces or whatever. They didn't want to get that creative, but I just thought it was just a shot that, it was just kind of, it hit you,
All right. But back to this though. Okay. This is, you also spoke with him also about his euphoria of the London show.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And we did that to make the article, because it was too much of a shift, completely. So I didn't do that in there, but we, I put the video online about that, but that was just, again, he felt challenged by it, but he lived up to the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
That took place shortly. The interview took place shortly after that show, right?
Days, like he had just gotten back, so everybody was still kind of jet lagged. Him and Matt were both, jet lagged and everything. And, but you couldn't tell from the energy of the interview that they were, but yeah, that was just days after they got back. So I think that was part of it. He was riding the high of that, from Wembley. Mm-hmm. So, and that's just like that. I think that's, man, I think Ed just hit him with the spiritual, go on and do good things, my son, energy from that point onwards. And I think that just really was the spark of energy, the lightning bolt from the skies,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'll tell you, us as fans, we've been in love with his debut album since day one, and greatly looking forward to the next one. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like I said, it's going to be a statement. This, the first album was getting his feet wet and everything like that, but this is going to be the Wolfgang Van Halen album. So you'll be hearing what his stamp on things is this time around. A little bit less of the, like I said, the tribute to other stuff. And then more of his own.
Yeah, we've talked about this to do all the instruments yourself, Charles. I mean, that's it's one for you and your band, however tight you are, to go in and work and do something, but that it has to be quite an undertaking. Each layer, you're doing it yourself.
Yeah, but he can do it. That's the other thing, is that, I mean, he's people know about the bass, they know about the guitar playing, but the drumming is, he's right up there on the drums too.
He was a drummer first before anything else, if I recall.
Yeah, he was a drummer first, and it really shows when you hear and see him play the drums.
Mm-hmm. And it shows on those short clips that he would put out.
Yeah.
Before anybody had heard any finished music, he was putting out him doing drum clips, and now we can look back at it and say, that's from that song, that's from this song,
Yeah.
And totally mind blowing how it sounds though. It's phenomenal, his work. Yeah.
And that's, I mean, they were talking about the Taylor Hawkins things of possibly having Wolf sit on drums for a couple songs, but it was just too big, of a thing. It was just like, so that's got put on the back burner.
Let me ask you this, Chris. You being around young Wolf his whole life, I wonder where was the idea born that, I'm talented and I can play many instruments and I know how to record and I know how to do all this stuff. But when did the idea really start? Do you think that I'm going to do it all myself here?
Oh, that's a hard one to tell. I think he just had a love for music and just being around it and seeing and absorbing all this stuff. I think really when he started work on the album, I think it came to one of those things like, this is how I'm going to get it done, and I'm capable of doing it. I don't think it was ever a plan or anything. It's just one of those things. He just does it all,
Right. I also know he did take some inspiration from Dave Grohl because,
true. Yeah.
Everything off the first Foo Fighter album was all Dave.
No,
and
true.
He's admitted that as well. He's like,
yeah,
I want to see if I could do it just like Dave did it.
Yeah. But I think that's, part of it is just he had done all these different things and just like it almost made perfect sense for him to do it. So But I don't think he ever saw himself as I'm just a bass player or I'm just, a guitar player. I'm just this, I'm just that. It has been about the whole package for him. Kind of. I don't know when, but I think
my dad, a musician.
Yeah.
Yeah. You make
Not a
it
rock
all.
star.
It's all. You can't tell your bass player how to play bass a lot of the times, but when you play it all, it's all your creation. So, I really like all the songs off the first album. Yeah.
I'm bummed that we're gonna maybe have to wait more than a year to get to see him.
Yeah,
actually, Chris, Tony, and I are planning on heading way up north.
Yeah, well, you may not have to wait that long. I mean, I know that the album, I can't say for definite the plan as it stands right now is that sometime in 2023 the album will come out, probably towards the latter half of the year.
Mm-hmm.
But he's going back to record. They're going off and doing more shows, and he's going to come back and probably finish up the album, and then we'll see from there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard to say, because I think he'll be doing more shows. I mean, he's got the bug for playing live right now. I mean, we can see that he's out there. He's been out there a lot. Really, considering.
Sure he has.
Well,
and of course, he has all the Metallica stuff coming up this summer too.
Right.
So.
Yeah,
Well,
I
that's
was
what we're
going to
talking
ask
about.
you,
Yeah.
what is your take on the how they're doing those shows with alternate opening acts?
I think it's cool. Unfortunately, I wish, I mean, I don't know how the seats are going to be for the people who only want to go to one day, and can't do the full meal deal, So,
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. It's like my next door neighbor's a huge Metallica fan. And I remember like the day before tickets went on sale, we were talking and he hadn't heard about it yet. I said, oh, Metallica's coming, with Wolfgang and Pantera and everything, because he's also a huge Pantera fan. He's a Van Halen fan. And he's like, oh crap, but he can't really afford to go to, to 2 nights, but he wants to go to the Pantera Wolfgang, night, and everything like that. But it's like, oh, they're only selling 2 ticket packages, and the one day shows won't go available till January, and so that kind of, I don't know. I get what they're doing, but at the same time, it's kind of like, gosh, man, it's just like,
Well, me and this guy live in the same state and go to shows. If we have to travel, we'll go to both shows. But if it's local, we probably will just do the Mammoth.
One, yeah.
Whoever else, but Mammoth for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, it's it will be cool. It will be great, and it'll be great to see Wolf out there again, like he did with Guns, Guns.
Yeah,
that big audiences again.
Yeah, we here in North Carolina have been a little. We've had cancellations, and we have yet to see Wolf as a headliner here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we're
one of these days,
if we have to travel, we will.
Send me an email. Send me an email late last week of January, because I'm going to see Wolf first week of February, first couple of days of February. So, and I will definitely plant the seed in his ear for you guys. So.
Right on.
Yeah.
Tell him to come back to North Carolina.
I was lucky. I got a chance to see him down at the House of Blues on March 1st, and I got a couple of these from him. And
right on, Keith.
One of the best shows I have seen in my life. Period. And I'm not talking about just Wolfgang and Mammoth. I'm talking about the entire show. Dirty Honey was a fantastic show, and then Saint Electric, which is Slash's son's band, were the openers.
Yeah,
and they put on a great show as well. And it's just, and I'm lucky I got to ride the rail the entire time and just soak it all in. And I got really great video of it, and I was just so blessed. And I feel bad for these guys because they missed such a great show. And I'm going to say this once and once only. If you're a true Mammoth WVH fan, get these tickets because it's important. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be moving into the area with these guys. Okay.
The thing is too, is like, these are going to be the shows you're going to be talking about, just like, the early Van Halen shows that I talk about,
Right.
Precisely. I didn't see Van Halen until Van Halen 2 in '79. I don't want to not see the first Mammoth
And this is going to
headline
be
tour.
like probably going to be about your last chances to see him in some of the smaller venues too. So, because I think
Precisely.
this kid's going to go on and pick up the baton from the Foo Fighters and that sort of thing. He's
I
kind
would
of
not be surprised if he starts doing arena shows on the second album during
Yeah.
the second half of his tour.
Yeah.
he may very well be getting to that stage. We'll
Yeah.
see, but it's very I'd be willing to bet money that he's moving onward and upward, and get out there and see him now while you can see him close,
Yeah.
and for not, not for paying a huge fortune, a house mortgage payment,
Right.
That's right.
It is getting a little ridiculous out there.
It's getting ridiculous nowadays. I'm an old timer, man, but I was talking with someone the other day about just like, gosh, it used to be like a concert ticket, an album, and a t-shirt all cost the same price.
That's
which was
right.
like $5-6.
That's right.
That's true. That's true.
And nowadays it's like, the album, CD, download, whatever is within reason. T-shirt, the official t-shirts are getting up there, and the concert tickets are like, forget it.
Yeah.
Pretty
I
ridiculous.
know.
And forget it if you want anything decent seated. I mean,
Yeah, well, that's
last time I checked
gosh.
out the seating pricing for this tour is a couple of $100 for the cheap seats.
Yeah.
Well, how it used to be, and you know all too well, Chris, is the people who were in the front rows of the show. You look at some old Van Halen. You look at the people, the Van Halen fans in the first 5 rows of every show are the truest of Van Halen fans. But now you go to a show and the people up there are just the people who spent the most money that night.
Yeah, I mean, there is that's the one thing that kind of kills me a little bit is it's kind of like you see some of these stockbroker types and stuff out there, and they're kind of just like, it's just, I don't know.
You need one of these.
Then again, you go to some shows and you have the hardcore out there too, so it varies from thing to thing. But yeah, there is a little bit of this kind of like the elite class kind of thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, and as an artist on tour, you would want your most diehard fans nearest you and not up in the rafters.
Definitely, fully agree.
You know.
But then again, they're making the payments on the Lamborghinis and the Bentleys and the and the third and fourth and fifth houses and whatever. So that stuff ain't
Charles
cheap.
is making a Lamborghini payment.
It ain't easy.
Yep.
Y'all think I'm kidding too.
Yeah. Hardly.
Chris, I want to be the first to thank you for coming on here again and keeping us up to date on the stuff that we hold so dear in this community. You're an icon, brother. We thank you, brother.
Oh, my pleasure, man. I'm just the messenger. That's the thing. I'm here to pass the word on to help people get the word out there. And, that's my role.
Yeah, you're doing it really good. You're establishing a legacy that is just outstanding, Chris. It's just outstanding.
You are we all look to you, and you'll be the Van Halen spokesperson that we'll read for here on. So,
my curiosity, I'm just as curious as you guys. Like I said, the Beat It thing, and I was just actually, our good buddy Alan Garber, we were just emailing today talking about like Beat It. Like, this is one of the most historically important songs of the 20th century. First of all, you have the interracial thing going on.
Absolute crossover, yes.
And it was a huge seller. And why is there such a lack of good, solid, factual information about this? Why haven't there been more deep dives into it? And that's why I'm doing it, because I'm curious myself. We have these stories. We have kind of this cartoon version, and it's a little glamorized, and, and it's not 100% true or whatever, but it's like, it's fun, but let's get down to the nuts and bolts here of what really happened.
pieces.
Yeah, the missing pieces. I'm curious to really figure out what the amp was. I'm leaning towards this guy, Greg Leon, who said that he rented his super bass plexi to Ed for it through Andy Brower. And Andy Brower says that that's the case. And I tend to believe Andy Brower. Now, some of Andy Brower's other details get off the rails, which kind of, it makes you question things, but it doesn't completely discount what he says, and I think he's a very credible person, but, and I know I'm going to get all hell from the Hartley Thompson guy, because I'm leaning, there's still a possibility that may have been it, but I'm really starting to doubt it, but I want to know these things. I'm curious to know what did he use, and, there's information there about the solo that doesn't seem to be right when you really listen, especially with the glory of these isolated tracks that we're now getting. When you listen to it now, you can hear points where it seems like, okay, that's an edit, either a mute or a crossfade or whatever, and from what I know, and the best recollections I have was that Ed just did 2 run-throughs of the solo, and then they comped together the best parts. Don Landy did his magic and everything. I wish Don Landy would come out of the woodwork, Don, and talk, and man.
What is everybody else?
We've talked about this, right, Chris?
Yeah. But because he's the holder of the keys to the kingdom, and
yeah.
Oh,
that's
boy.
the interview you need to get. The
Yeah.
book you need to write.
Hey,
That need to be written. Ooh.
Chris, Holly asked another question, and she just would like to know, where can she get a copy of this magazine, the new magazine article? Do you have an answer other than the one that I was going to give her?
I know nothing. I know nothing. No, I really don't. I don't know. I'm so disconnected from
let me answer it. If you, Holly, you have 2 choices. One, you can go online and go to guitarworld.com official, and you can go on there and you can purchase even back issues. Or you can do it what I do, which is just buy the digital download of the magazine, and it's right there with all the photographs and everything and all the articles. And I find that more convenient. So that's what I would just. And if you have anything to add to that, Chris,
I forgot about the digital version, but that's the quick and easy way to do it. Quick, easy, cheap way to get it. Instant gratification.
Yep.
There are also other ways. Check your Barnes and Noble. Check your newsstands.
Yeah, it's in your local magazine stores now. Go
magazine
fetch
stores,
it.
and if I recall correctly, I think it also might be available on the Van Halen news desk as well. Or that Van Halen store, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Van Halen News. Jeff over there at Van Halen News Desk does a really good job of getting that stuff. So that's another place to check. You might pay a little extra for it, but you're going to get it.
Yeah, check the Van Halen store. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For all your shopping needs.
Yeah.
Brian S. is in the chat. It's good to see you, Brian. Haven't seen you in a minute, brother.
You definitely want this, the January 2023.
Yes.
For sure.
And if you haven't gotten it yet, get this as well.
Yes. Absolutely.
It's still kicking. I'm surprised. I'm looking at the Amazon numbers, and it's still, man, thank you people out there. It's still going strong.
Good.
So
Glad
it's
to hear that.
still in the rock.
It's must-have reading for this world right here.
Definitely a pillar for any Van Halen audiophile, videophile, anybody who wants any kind of Van Halen history. This book is definitely one of them that you need to have. Okay. There are maybe 5. Oh, wrong hand. 5 books, maybe 5 that you need to get, and this is one of them.
Yeah.
Although I'll say it again, if you guys really want to dig deep into the world of Van Halen in general and Edward, just archive Chris Gill and go back to Guitar World, archive Chris Gill and at Ground Zero. And by the time you're done, you'll have one of the best pictures in your mind of Edward Van Halen, his life, his world, and everything, because it's the shit.
Yeah.
From the heart, guys, from the heart. Right there.
Absolutely. And Chris, again, we look forward to your coverage of Mammoth WVH in the future, EVH and the EVH brand. They are a force, and a lot of new stuff in the years to come. Wish we could get it all now, but we cannot.
Yeah. That SA-126 is looking really sweet, isn't it? It's
yeah.
Yes.
on the wish list here. So
And
you're gonna do well with that.
looking at those layouts and the bodies that they had for them, I mean, a lot of people are falling in love with the tobacco burst, but I am in love with that quilt.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I saw that thing live and it just pops. It reminds me so much of the Ernie Ball Music Man that his father had. It just that flame job is off the rails. Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So we'll be waiting on that when it comes out for sure, and your coverage of it too, Chris, as we always do. But yeah, we were all so excited about this, getting this, and thank you so much for joining us with our excitement about the latest magazine. So yeah.
But thank you guys for all your support and everything like that. We couldn't do it without you. That's the other thing. So, the community out there, all you people out there in the comments section and at large, and the lurkers and everybody, it's just the guitar community. It's a good place, and, Ed went at this stuff with a lot of love for all of you. That's the thing. So, I mean, I got so pissed off when people said like, oh, EVH is a cash grab, whatever. And it's like, no, it's like, if it was a cash grab, the guy would not have been spending 3 years on the first Wolfgang guitar. He would not have spent 9 months alone on the pickups. It's like, that's just, that isn't how the guy operated. And you want to,
those people,
cash grab and Eddie
they
Van
don't know
Halen
what
just
they're
do not
talking
belong
about.
together. I don't know how many times when I was around Ed, how many offers of things of people offering him millions of dollars for this and this, that, and the other, and him saying no.
Right.
Ed
and he said it many times. We'd be ripping off the fans.
Yeah, and Ed could have quadrupled, tripled, 10 times the wealth that he had amassed in his lifetime if he had accepted all these offers out there, and he didn't, because it had to be right.
Right.
It had to represent who he was as a person, and especially when it came to musical instruments, it's like, I don't want to rip off people. I don't want to give some kid a crappy guitar. I mean, I guess, it's funny because, he dealt with not the greatest guitars and became who he was, but, he just wanted to offer, his knowledge, his input on things. It took him a while to get there, but it's like, that's what he wanted to do. And especially EVH was just the ultimate expression of that.
I would have left, if I were an interviewer, I would have, and a fan, I would have left the interview, Chris, very excited. I'm sure you were. I'd be, wow.
Oh yeah, no, I'm pumped. I can't wait for my 78, to come in. So that's the one thing. But even I don't get favors, so it's whatever. But it's all equal. We're all on equal ground.
Yeah.
Chris, I want to say one last thing before we close this out, though. I would be remiss without thanking you for the time that you've given me when we got to meet at EVH Con.
Oh, my pleasure.
That was such a wonderful time. The short time that we did spend together. I know you were being grabbed by people on all ends.
It was tough. I mean, but for the people, I know where you come from and everything, and it's just, and that's the thing. It's just we're all part of the family, so that's how it is. It's so
it just felt great that you were there and part of the family, and it meant a lot to me, and it just sitting there talking with you and Scott Smith and just like listening to stuff and watching stuff and just like doink, there goes the arm hair.
It was so
surreal, but it was beautiful.
That show that we talked about the last time around, but there was so much cool stuff at there, and it's just like, man, this community, it's like, what a great thing. We need to do this stuff more often.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amen.
And it needs to be celebrated every year.
Yeah,
on a larger scale as well.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've got to head down to Scott's here. He was actually, we were texting on Thanksgiving Day. As a matter of fact, I'm smoking a turkey in the backyard. Not smoking a turkey, but cooking in the smoker a turkey. And but he's just sending me pictures of all these guitars. And I'm like, man, it's like I got a 2-hour drive away, man. And I got to get down there. I got to get out to Adam Reaver's place and get all the FU Tone Love, and everything. So I got to set up my Wolfgang USA, my Stealth, with the Adam Reaver mega upgrades, all this great stuff. So,
You got to get it fully decked out, Chris. It's got to
Yeah.
be decked.
Yeah.
And I put the big brass block and Betty there, and that thing wails. I probably have to take it back out and do a little revision on the inner cavity there, because I want it to die.
yeah,
Big time.
yeah.
There you go, bro.
But that's no big thing for me. You know, I can knock that out. I got my Dremel, and I know how much to take off. So
Cool.
But the whole crew that was there was such a great time, and I can't thank you guys enough, you know, for putting it all out, and everybody for showing up. Though that was such a great time. You know, meeting all the people there, Susan, Janice, everybody there. You know,
Yeah.
Oh God, it was such a great time. And then, you know, having Joe there and Jim and Pete. Pete's enjoying his last days down in Florida right now. I mean, it's, you know, everything they did was just over the top and so welcoming. And it was just like meeting your old family and friends. But I got to meet them for the first time, you know.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to do it again next year. And I'm taking these two knuckleheads with me for
Cool.
the next
Yeah.
one.
Cool.
That's what rumor has it, Tony. We're
Right
going to be
on.
there, bro.
It's not that
Oh
far.
yeah, yeah. It's only
Let-
North Carolina. Come on, I came from San Diego.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's give them a couple of heads up before we forget on
Yep.
upcoming. It is the holiday season.
Mhm.
It is, yeah, we're midway through December now.
Alrighty.
Hang on. So Saturday we do a show here on Guitar Picks and Rock Memorabilia
Yep,
called
yep.
Show Me Your Pick. And this Saturday we're going to be talking about and showing a bunch of stuff from George Harrison. We talked about George Harrison
Excellent.
some tonight already.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so that's Saturday here, 9 p.m. Eastern. Show me your pick Saturday nights. But yeah, so we have another winner tonight, Gretsch Zeppelin. Let's congratulate him again,
Right on,
guys.
Gretsch.
So
Very cool, bro.
you're going to get a bill like that. Dude, you're going to get a cool poker chip like
Way
that.
cool poker chip, dude. Way cool.
You're
Must
gonna
have.
get-
Must have.
Yeah, you're going to get a laminate. You're going to be invited to our backstage bash on the 30th,
Yeah.
and you'll be invited here on New Year's Eve
You got the first poker chip.
as our guest on the panel on New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
That's going to be so
Can't wait to
cool.
meet you, bro.
So 2 parties in 2 days, going to be all weekend. Got to have stamina. Moderation.
Rest up, boys and girls.
moderation.
Yeah, Tony,
Moderation.
we're staying up all night, basically, man. That's, you
I
know,
know,
Yeah.
man.
that's shit for the
Man.
young, bro. What are we doing, man?
Have the coffee pot in one hand
Come
and I'm never mind.
You've been training for this all your life, kids. Come
Well,
on.
I'm going to be
Bring
drinking,
it.
just personally. That's what I'm going to be doing. So,
Yeah, but it'll be a
Yeah,
very
bring this.
fun New Year's weekend. Very fun here. We have 2 more chances next week and the week after, 21st and 28th, for you to join us too. But
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So I want to say thank you again to our very special guest. It's always a pleasure and an
you,
honor
Chris.
to have him on. Chris,
That's it.
Yes, man.
right
Yeah.
on.
And Frankengill.
Yeah, and thank you for he's showing it right now, our
Yep.
latest Guitar World magazine.
Thank you
Yeah.
for this, Chris.
Awesome sauce. All the way around. Awesome.
I love what he
Yeah.
put right here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not a guitarist of the year. I'm just a dude. Is that his dad or what?
Yeah, definitely.
I'm just a punk kid who plays guitar.
Yep. That's
That's
that.
it.
That's it.
Right
Mhm.
on. Everybody in the chat, thank you so much for being here. It's always awesome to see you. Have a great week. Have a good weekend upcoming. Get some Christmas shopping done.
Yeah.
Running out of time. We'll be back here Saturday, like we say. And leave a thumbs up on the video here and subscribe if you're not. We talk all things Van Halen every Wednesday night,
That's
rain
right.
or shine. Really, rain or shine. So sometimes we have to do that all day today, right, Charles?
Dude, it's messy around here right now.
I know, goodness. All right, we're out of here. Halenville Live. Thanks for being here. Any last words, Charles Green?
Guys, just don't forget, this is Halenville. Around here, it doesn't matter if you go north, south, east, or west. Every single road is going to lead you straight to Van Halen. Be well. Enjoy the rest of your week. Do something nice for somebody for no reason whatsoever. You'll feel better, man.
Right on.
Hey, rock on.
Sweet.